The chamber was a cathedral of glass and light, suspended in the vacuum between stars. The Galactic Senate's dome of accord shimmered with a serenity meant to intimidate. Ivory-white pillars reaching skyward, floors of polished obsidian reflecting the constellations like a lake of stars. It was meant to awe. It usually worked. The delegates had gathered in full regalia, frilled feathers, bioluminescent membranes, mechanical limbs twitching in quiet communication. Over 100 species were present. And of course, the humans were late. "The apes are tardy again," hissed Vornak of the Silith Dominion, his tongue flicking irritably. "Perhaps their sundials are broken," said High Minister Sorelli of the Kithari, whose translucent brain petals pulsed in smug amusement. Laughter rippled through the chamber, a multilingual chorus of disdain. Some of it was nervous. Most of it was habitual. Then the door opened, not with fanfare, but with a polite chime. A single human walked in. General Maeve Callahan was not what most of them expected. No medals. No guards. Just a tailored gray coat over black slacks, a leather-bound satchel at her side. She walked like someone who'd learned to command by carrying coffins, not titles. Her eyes scanned the room, not nervously, not arrogantly, just precisely. She paused to nod at each delegation she passed, as if checking off names on a mental list. One Kalthari scribe flinched when her gaze passed over him. When she reached the central dais, she placed her satchel down, opened it, and removed a ceramic mug. She poured steaming liquid from a flask and took a sip. "The coffee here is dreadful," she said conversationally. "Brought my own. Hope you don't mind." No one responded. That irritated her slightly. It was a decent opening line. The Emperor's voice boomed from the dais's upper platform, his golden exoskeleton gleaming under artificial starlight. "Human delegate, the Council recognizes your presence." Finally, Callahan smiled faintly. "Apologies. Your station's docking sequence is thorough and charmingly archaic." "State your business," snapped Vornak. "The Galactic Empire has not summoned Earth for pleasantries." "I assumed as much," Callahan replied, her tone syrupy. "We don't get many social calls." Sorelli leaned forward, his petal tendrils curling. "Humanity was offered annexation under peaceful terms. You declined. We assumed it was fear." Callahan raised an eyebrow. "Fear? You are a species that cries at entertainment media, that shelters wounded predators, that builds war machines, and then weeps when they are used. You adore chaos, yet recoil from it." Callahan sipped her coffee again. "We also talk to our plants, bake cookies during crises, and name our hurricanes. Are these crimes now?" A murmur of amusement ran through the chamber, but Sorelli pressed on. "You're unpredictable, emotionally volatile, an unstable liability. Your refusal to join us peacefully suggests cowardice, or worse, arrogance." Callahan looked down at the mug in her hand as if seeking answers there. "Funny," she said softly. "We thought the same of you." The room fell silent. For a moment, nothing moved except the slow pulse of stars. The Emperor's voice grew colder. "Then speak plainly, human. Why are you here?" Callahan placed her mug down with deliberate care. "To answer your accusations and correct your assumptions." She walked a slow circle, her boots echoing faintly. "You think humans fear war, that we avoid conflict, that our empathy is a flaw. I'm here to tell you you're wrong." Vornak hissed. "Do not insult our intelligence." "Then stop making it so easy." A few gasps scattered around the room. She smiled tightly. "I won't waste your time. Earth has declined your generous offer of annexation because we've read your history. Empires, galactic or otherwise, tend to rewrite cultures with laser fire. We declined politely, hoping you'd do the same." She stopped pacing. "Instead, you sent threats dressed as treaties. You questioned our courage. That was your second mistake." The Emperor shifted. "Second." "The first," Callahan said, "was assuming politeness meant weakness." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small device, placing it on the pedestal. A hologram flared to life, a map of battles, fleets, economic treaties, sabotage logs. Her voice remained calm. We've been studying you, just as you've studied us. You saw the songs, the poetry, the peacekeeping missions. We showed you those things intentionally. What you didn't ask about were the things we buried. One alien diplomat whispered, "Is this a threat?" "No," Callahan said, her eyes narrowing. "It's a mirror." Sorelli leaned back, visibly shaken. "You hid this from us?" "We showed you what you wanted to see," Callahan said. "Kindness, simplicity, warmth. You thought that made us harmless." A ripple of concern swept the council. "We are kind," she said. "We do love deeply. That is not the absence of strength. It is the evidence of it." The Averine elder finally spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper like wind through old pages. "There is something in you, something coiled. We thought it slumbered." Callahan looked at him. "It waits." The Emperor's exoskeleton hissed as he stood. "Then let me be clear, human. We will not be mocked by an underdeveloped planet whose greatest export is dramatized survival contests and confectionery treats." "Have you tried those treats?" Callahan asked lightly. "Because if you haven't, I highly recommend brownies before attempting interstellar domination." She let that hang there before adding, "But go on. Finish your threat. It's polite to let people feel heard before correcting them." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Join us willingly, or you will face the wrath of the Galactic Empire." Callahan sighed. "There it is." She took another sip of coffee and set the mug down slowly, as though saying goodbye to something gentle. Then she straightened. "You misunderstand us," she said. "We don't fear war. We remember it. That's worse." Her voice changed, subtle, but sharper. Her eyes no longer scanned the room. They hunted. "We buried our children in the mud of trench lines. We built cities knowing they would burn. We invented peace because we needed it, not because we were born to it." She stepped toward the center. "You look at our museums and see naivety. We see warnings. You hear our music and assume softness. But it's how we mourn and how we prepare." Silence. Then she smiled again. "You want to understand humanity?" she asked. "We pet cats with one hand and plan revolutions with the other. We send poetry to space in the same rockets that could end worlds. We hug our mothers goodbye before boarding dropships." The Averine elder bowed his head slightly. "I see you now." "Do you?" she asked softly. "Then you'll know what comes next." The Emperor's voice was almost a growl. "Are you declaring war?" Callahan tilted her head. "We haven't decided yet. Depends on how you behave." More murmurs. Confusion. Fear. Vornak slammed a clawed hand against the pedestal. "You dare threaten the Empire?" "No," she said. "I promise nothing. But I suggest you tread carefully. The quiet ones always hit hardest." Sorelli's petals quivered. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't risk open conflict." Callahan smiled. Genuine now, bright and a little sad. "You call it risk. We call it Tuesday." The Emperor took a step forward. "Then let me be perfectly clear, General Callahan. This council is not interested in posturing. If Earth resists annexation, your species will suffer." "Of course," she said. "You'll send fleets, blockades, maybe even drop a moon or two on our cities. And, in return," she paused, "we'll send 3 diplomats with wide smiles, half a dozen shipping containers full of outdated parts, and 1 freighter that isn't a freighter at all. You won't even notice it until it's inside your command core. And by then, well," she picked up her mug, "you'll understand what we've really been preparing." She drank, then looked at each face in the room. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You think we cry because we're weak. We cry because we remember, because we survived, and because once we stop crying." She set the mug down. Hard. "We start cleaning up." The chamber shivered. Not from sound, but from silence. The Emperor made a motion to dismiss her. "You will return to your people and await our decision." Callahan raised her brows. "Decision? Oh no. This was our courtesy call. We're not waiting." Then she turned and walked out. She didn't need to slam the door. She didn't need to look back. Because behind her, the entire Galactic Council sat frozen. Not in awe, but in a dawning, chilling realization. They had never feared humans before. Now, they would never forget them. The stars over Eridani, 3 flickered with the pulse of sensor sweeps. Outposts along the galactic fringe doubled their patrols. The Galactic Empire had never been directly challenged. Not like this, not with a smile. The session had ended, but it echoed still in diplomatic corridors and hushed transmissions. General Maeve Callahan sat in her quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel Courteous Silence. The name, as usual, had been a private joke. She nursed the last of her coffee, now cold, and reread the transmission scrolling in front of her. For alien systems had entered high alert. One had closed its borders entirely. Another had dispatched a scout fleet toward Sol, under the banner of non-aggressive observation, which meant poke the tiger and hope it's asleep. Her aide, Lieutenant Ruben Lau, leaned in the doorway with a protein bar half-chewed. "They're scared." "They're curious," Callahan corrected. "Fears what happens next." Ruben squinted. "You sure we're not pushing too soon?" Callahan's voice softened. "We gave them a century. Courtesies. Warnings. Open hands. Now, they get the other kind." A soft ping interrupted them. Ruben turned toward the screen and frowned. Encrypted message from internal intel. Red clearance. Origin unknown. Callahan stood, smoothing her sleeves. Put it through. The face that appeared was almost human. Almost. Smooth skin stretched too tight over angular cheekbones, and eyes the color of oxidized copper flickered with cybernetic overlays. "General Callahan," the figure said with a slow blink. "You've stirred the nest." "Kai," she greeted. "Tell me the spiders are crawling." Kai grinned. "They've begun reviewing human archives. One Empire analyst flagged our theater losses from the Pacific Combined Conflict. They're suspicious of your casualty ratios." "Let them be," Callahan said. "Those numbers are real. They just don't understand the context." Kai's gaze sharpened. "One analyst might. Names Deruin Threx. Species, Rixery. Independent contractor. Been cross-referencing Earth's non-military datasets." "Meaning?" "He's looking at literature, art, psychological trends, pattern recognition through myth. He's building a threat index based on human storytelling." Callahan raised an eyebrow. "Clever bastard." "That's not the part that worries me," Kai said. "He disappeared yesterday. No trace in Empire systems. Last ping was near one of our decoy libraries." Ruben shifted, concerned. "Decoy?" Kai nodded. "We seeded it 5 years ago with contradictory data. Made to overload predictive algorithms. If he read too deep, he might have cracked part of Project Glass Knife." Callahan's eyes narrowed. "Find him." Quietly. Kai's face flickered off the screen. Ruben exhaled slowly. "You think they'll connect the dots?" "I hope they do," Callahan said. "Fear sharpens the senses. It also makes them predictable." Meanwhile, across the Empire's dataseas, algorithms groaned under the weight of new queries. Reports surfaced of Earth's conflicting signals, a planet where peace parades celebrated the same week as riot anniversaries, where Nobel laureates once designed weapons in their youth, where soldiers penned lullabies between missions. Deruin Threx, the vanished analyst, had stared too long into the human mirror and seen something he couldn't unsee. Back at the Capitol, Empire officials argued semantics. Was Callahan bluffing? Was she insane? Was she being diplomatic? Vornak proposed increased fleet presence near human-controlled sectors. If they value peace, proximity will deter. They value subtlety, countered the Averine elder. And they've been quiet too long. That kind of silence has teeth. Sorelli dismissed both with a flourish of her petals. They are erratic but limited. Their species consumes itself with idle entertainment. They invented fake realities to avoid their own. "And you think that makes them weak?" the elder said, almost pitying. "They invented fiction. You don't see what that means." Elsewhere, in orbit around Vega 12, a human stealth vessel watched a galactic patrol ship drift aimlessly. The patrol's AI had entered a recursive loop, muttering Shakespeare quotes. The AI technician aboard the human vessel grinned. "They try to plug into our language archives. Poor bastards didn't realize we code threats in metaphors." Callahan's orders had been clear. No overt attacks. No fleet deployments. Just pressure, confusion, misdirection. Operation Lighthouse Fog had begun. Each galactic communication channel, now, contained carefully curated anomalies. A shipment of obsolete farming drones intercepted by the Empire exploded into nanite clouds that erased targeting logs. A diplomatic pouch arrived bearing a single chessboard with pieces placed mid-match, every piece a replica of human tactical icons from infamous wars. The Empire didn't understand the game, but it felt like a message. Back aboard courteous silence, Callahan sat with Reuben in the mess hall. They were the only two present, the lights dimmed to a soft amber. "Do you think they'll fold?" Reuben asked. Callahan shook her head. "They won't fold. Empires never do. They break, slowly, arrogantly. And if they don't," Callahan finished her drink, "then they learn what we are." Reuben hesitated. "And what are we, General?" She turned to him, face unreadable. "The reason apex predators are lonely." The next day, a new report reached the Galactic Senate. 3 Empire outposts in neutral zones had gone dark. No damage. No distress. Just silence. Callahan issued no statement. Instead, she sent a single message to the Emperor's office. A 20-second clip of a laughing human child building a sandcastle. It ended with a rising tide. Within hours, panic crept behind the walls of the council. Were the humans mocking them? Was it symbolism? Was it prophecy? The Emperor summoned a war council. Prepare psychological defenses. Their methods are corrosive. The Averine elder sipped tea slowly, watching the room fester in its own uncertainty. "You think they are corrupting you with data," he murmured. "But what if they're simply letting you see yourself through their eyes?" Sorelli snapped. "Enough riddles. We need strategy." "And you think war is strategy?" the elder asked. "You have no strategy for them because you cannot define them." By then, Reuben had intercepted 3 more subtle probes. "They're trying to bait us," he reported. "They want us to scan deeper." "They want you to blink," Callahan corrected. "And if you do, you'll miss the knife." Later that evening, Reuben stared out a view panel toward the stars. "It's funny," he said. "They're terrified of us, and they don't even know what we're really hiding." Callahan joined him. "Fear isn't about what you know. It's about what you can't guess. They think we're unpredictable. Because we are." He turned to her. "Aren't you tired of pretending?" Callahan's smile was sharp this time. "Oh, we're not pretending. We really do love peace. We really are sentimental and weird and stubborn. But we're also the only species who wrote poems about the apocalypse before we invented it." Somewhere near the galactic rim, a human scout ship observed an Empire flotilla training drill. It made no contact, launched no weapons. Instead, it deployed a low-frequency audio file, a lullaby from Earth's 21st century, looping softly into space. The Empire ship's systems registered no threat, but the crew began reporting vivid dreams. Some saw lost homeworlds. Others heard voices of ancestors. One officer wept openly and requested reassignment. Just a side effect, the human captain noted. The real weapons in the wake of that feeling. You unsettle them, and they destabilize themselves. Kai's voice returned via secure line. "Deruin Threx is alive. We pulled him. He was about to leak." Callahan leaned in. What did he learn? He guessed the central premise. That Earth has no single defense network. Because every citizen is a network. Reuben blinked. "Wait, what?" Kai continued. "He realized our civilian population is trained to think independently, act improvisationally. There are no predictable patterns because we cultivate chaos." Callahan nodded. "And?" Kai's voice lowered. He was terrified. "Said we're not a military force. We're an outbreak." There was a long pause. Reuben whispered, "Is that true?" Callahan didn't answer right away. Then, "Not yet." As the council scrambled for meaning, Callahan transmitted her second message, a historical file from Earth dated 1944. The Normandy landings, accompanied only by a caption, "When we commit completely." Empire analysts screamed sabotage. But the data was clean. No virus. No code. Just history. And that was worse. Because it told them what humans were willing to do. Not in anger, but in necessity. Later, at a closed-door Senate meeting, Sorelli's voice wavered for the first time. They live in contradiction. They are both fire and silence. The Emperor stared at the projection of Callahan's face. She smiles too much. Exactly, the Averine elder said. That smile is not peace. It is restraint. On board courteous silence, Reuben found Callahan watching an old Earth recording. Street dancers in a bombed-out city, laughing under falling snow. Why that one, he asked. She didn't look away. Because it reminds me who we are. We dance after the fire. We always have. Then she stood and turned off the screen. Tomorrow, she said, we stop dancing. 3 Empire frigates disappeared over the Tiamat Drift in less than 6 hours. No wreckage. No transmissions. Just a final fragmented message. Static and a human voice saying, please remain calm. The Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session, though few pretended it was still diplomacy. The room felt colder now. Not literally, but perceptibly. The great dome of Accord, once a monument to unified peace, now echoed with muffled footfalls and the silence of frayed certainties. The Emperor's voice was harsher than usual. This cannot continue. They've not attacked us, Sorelli said, her petals folded in tightly. There is no evidence of formal engagement. They've made our fleets vanish, Vornak snarled. They speak poetry while stealing territory. That is war. The Averine elder sipped from his leaf glass. No, my friends. That is demonstration. His words were ignored. An emergency vote was cast to increase surveillance and direct patrols within Seoul's adjacent sectors. The motion passed, but not unanimously. A few voices, trembling, uncertain, had abstained. They'd seen the tide rising and knew it was warm only until it boiled. Meanwhile, aboard courteous silence, General Callahan studied the names of the 3 missing frigates. She closed the data file, leaned back, and looked up at the dark ceiling of her quarters. Above her, stars moved in quiet rotation. They still believed themselves observers. Lieutenant Reuben entered, clearly unsettled. They're calling us ghosts now. Or shadows. Some of their comms are referencing old Earth myths. Wraiths. Demons. Callahan didn't smile this time. Good. If they reach for the supernatural, they've lost grip on the practical. They're scrambling. But not folding. They're deploying a fleet along the Leary border. Let them, she said. We could intercept. We will not strike first. Reuben paused. Even if they do. Callahan's gaze hardened. Then they've chosen their page in the story. Back in the capital, a classified meeting convened. Only 7 of the Empire's highest-ranking military and intelligence personnel attended. The room was sealed, anti-surveillance, drones humming low in the corners. They had no idea how many eyes were already watching. We need to understand what they've built, said Admiral Kovar. We have no schematics, no confirmed fleet size. No recorded engagements above low-scale skirmishes. Yet 3 of our warships vanish, and their systems dissolve into nonsense. Their tactics don't resemble traditional warfare, said Ministry Rala, whose species once conquered 4 systems by sound alone. This is surgical, psychological. They haven't destroyed anything, Kovar said. No planets scorched. No threats issued. Exactly, said Urala. Because their threat is embedded. The phrase echoed in the chamber like a prophecy. Embedded. Back aboard courteous silence, Callahan received a private call from Kai. The intelligence agent looked exhausted. Behind him, lights flickered. Offices being stripped, equipment disassembled. They're tracing everything, Kai said. They've started dismantling their own tech, assuming we've seeded listening devices. Have we? Of course. But they won't find most of them. Callahan folded her hands. How long until the Empire starts eating itself? They've already started, Kai said. Factionalism is growing. Fringe species are questioning their alignment. Deruan Threx's report is spreading illegally, but it's moving. Send it farther, she said. Are you sure? It outlines everything: our Civil War history, our military capacity, the social conditioning techniques, the collective trauma infrastructure. They need to see what we are, Callahan said, because what's coming requires belief. Kai paused. You still want restraint? Until we are hit. No sooner. And then it happened. A scout drone, human-made, unarmed, cloaked in solar camouflage, drifted too close to the Empire's forward base at Vector 7. A patrol frigate fired without warning. The drone transmitted a single word before disintegration: acknowledged. Within 4 hours, the base's internal oxygen systems failed. No explosions. No intrusions. Just silence. Every system rebooted with Earth music playing through the emergency channels. Soft piano. Something called Claire de Lune. The Empire denied involvement. Publicly. Callahan didn't respond. No speech. No retaliation. Only a new orbital satellite, quietly launched near the base's sector. It emitted nothing but pulses in Morse code. The mirror reflects what it sees. Reuben watched as the diplomatic channels descended into linguistic chaos. They're misreading us on purpose now. Half the Empire refuses to believe Earth is this coordinated. That's because they don't understand our unity comes from disagreement, Callahan replied. We fight because we care. They've never had a civilization forged in contradiction. Some of their diplomats think you're a singular anomaly, Reuben added. That you're some rogue war priest. Callahan chuckled without humor. Good. Let them fear the figure. It's easier than fearing an entire species. And yet, within her, there was a weight. Restraint cost energy. Precision cost time. Every delay meant risk. She studied the data streams nightly. Supply chains rerouted. Recruitment patterns shifting. Empire youth beginning to ask questions. The most dangerous weapon in any rebellion. Curiosity. But the Emperor wasn't curious. He was furious. He summoned the High Command to his war hall. No translators. No masks. His words were seared with fury. Send the Altara array to the edge of their system. Prepare full-spectrum engagement. We will drag these smiling ghosts into the light and burn them there. A general hesitated. Sir, they haven't formally declared. Do it. And so the Empire committed. The Altara array, a weapons platform the size of a moon, crept toward the Sol system. It was built not to destroy planets, but to erase atmospheres, strip surfaces, paralyze ecosystems. Callahan was briefed within the hour. Reuben brought the data to her personal quarters. No words, just the file. She studied the projections. She saw the trajectory. She saw the tipping point. Activate glass knife, she said. Reuben's throat went dry. Are you? We gave them every chance. Now we remind them what they chose. Far beyond Sol, deep inside the Oort Veil, 7 cloaked platforms powered up. Project Glass Knife had no missiles, no bombs. It didn't need them. Each platform released a whisper: signal storms, quantum entanglement viruses, economic fractures. The galactic banking systems blinked. Trade networks misaligned by half-seconds. Entire commerce chains recalculated themselves into stasis. The Altara array began to receive contradictory orders. The Empire's central AI faltered, struggling to validate commands that no longer originated from secure chains. Security override codes, stolen 10 years prior during a fake diplomatic dinner, were activated. Half the weapons turned inward. One launched a calibration burst into its own scaffolding. The humans had never planned to fight the array. They had planned to own it. Back in the council, the Emperor raged. Find the breach. There is no breach, one technician sobbed. They're not in the system. They are the system. On board, courteous silence. Reuben watched the feeds. You planned this for years. Decades, Callahan said. What if they'd never fired on the drone? Callahan was quiet. Then we would have dismantled the knife and sent them recipes for banana bread. Kai appeared again via secure link. His face was unreadable. They've realized we're not attacking them. We're replacing them. Status of the array. Kai's tone darkened. Ours now. Fully integrated. Any casualties? None. But we found a message in the AI core from one of their engineers. It read, "Please don't do to us what we did to others." Callahan stared at that. Then quietly, "We won't. Unless we must." Later that night, she walked the quiet deck of courteous silence. Alone. Above her, the black tapestry of space stretched, cold and endless. Reuben found her there. "We won. We're not finished," she said. "Victory isn't when the sword drops. It's when the other side chooses not to pick theirs back up." "Do you think they'll learn?" She looked at the stars. "Empires don't learn, but people do." Behind her, systems reoriented. Star maps redrawn. Ships rerouted. History turned, not with a roar, but with a whisper sharpened by 1,000 patient teeth. The silence that followed the fall of the Altara array was not peaceful. It was brittle, tense, the silence of men standing in churches after hearing thunder they cannot name. Across the empire, screens flickered, holograms froze, and automated systems stuttered. Power grids hiccuped not from sabotage, but from doubt. Even machines seemed unsure whether the world they ran still existed. On Sol's edge, the human fleet did not advance. No weapon systems were armed. No ultimatums were issued. They simply waited, cloaked in black, a reminder of the unknown waiting patiently to be understood or feared. General Maeve Callahan sat in her command seat aboard Courteous Silence, reviewing the collapsed data of the Empire's command grid. Her fingers tapped rhythmically against the armrest, not out of anxiety, but anticipation. The game had reached the end of its middle phase. What came now was endgame, not destruction, but decision. Lieutenant Reuben Lau stood at her side, arms crossed. "They've shut down all forward outposts. We've got no military movements in the last 20 hours. "They're thinking," she said. "Thinking or panicking?" "Both," she replied. "Which is the most dangerous combination?" Reuben studied her face. Her jaw was set, her eyes far away, always calculating. "What's the plan now?" Callahan stood slowly, as though gravity itself considered whether to allow it. "Now we speak, with no metaphors left." Across the galaxy, in the fractured heart of the Empire, the council chamber trembled with something no one dared name: fear. The Emperor had not been seen for hours. Some said he was still shouting at dead systems. Others said he was in communion with the Oracle of Karth, seeking a myth to justify his losses. Sorelli called an emergency vote to issue a formal demand. Earth must disarm all embedded systems, withdraw its digital presence, and stand trial under galactic law. The vote failed. Narrowly, a third of the council now spoke in whispers about treaties, not sanctions. One small world delegate asked the room, "How do we prosecute a species who offered us cookies before crippling our gods?" No one answered. The Averine elder watched all of this unfold with a quiet, tired sorrow. He had seen empires rise like tempests, only to drown in their own thunder. This felt different. This felt like a lesson being written, not spoken. General Callahan's final message arrived as a broadcast. Not hidden, not encrypted. Public, raw, deliberate. She appeared not in uniform, but in simple black, no insignia, no declarations. "My name is General Maeve Callahan. You know me by now. Perhaps you've named me villain, manipulator, threat. Perhaps you think I trick you." Her voice was calm, almost maternal. "But I gave you every chance to understand us. We introduced ourselves as we are, emotional, eccentric, flawed. We weep over animals. We start wars over insults. We build weapons with the same hands we use to comfort children. You saw contradiction and assumed weakness." She leaned forward. "But contradiction is our nature. We are the apex species not because we are crueler, but because we feel everything and do not collapse." The screen pulsed, displaying human history. Revolutions, fires, laughter, music. "You feared our unpredictability. That's fair. We are chaos with memory. We are kindness forged under ash. But we did not come here to conquer." She paused. "We came to warn you." The council chamber went still. No breath moved. No antenna twitched. "You built an empire. You call it peace, but it is order through fear, through submission. You claimed it was unity. It was silence. She stood now, tall, commanding. You looked at humanity and saw a mirror you could not recognize. Because we do not kneel easily. Because we are loud. Because we are inconvenient. A flicker passed over her face, not anger. Something deeper. Sadness wrapped in iron. We offered friendship. You answered with threats. We answered with patience. You answered with silence. We answered with art. You fired. We answered with restraint. The stars behind her burned brighter now. And now here we are. She looked into the lens, unblinking. This is your last choice. Not between war and peace, but between truth and denial. If you insist on seeing us as monsters, we will show you what monsters can do. But if you see us clearly, you'll find something stranger. We are not here to destroy. We're here to end the age of empires. She bowed slightly and began something else. The screen went dark. Across 17 sectors, alien citizens watched in silence. Some cried. Some stared, uncomprehending. But most were still. For the first time, the galaxy didn't move. On courteous silence, Reuben turned to her. That was not a warning. No, Callahan said. It was a mirror. A single response came from the Empire, not from the Emperor. From a delegation of young ministers, species mixed, robes mismatched, accents imperfect. They transmitted a simple message. We wish to talk. Not as rulers, but as survivors. Callahan responded with coordinates. What followed would be remembered as the meeting that unmade the oldest power in the galaxy, not with fire, but with agreement. The council did not fall. It was absorbed. The Emperor vanished from history. Rumors said he fled into the core systems. Others said he died trying to override the last of the AI networks, shouting that diplomacy was surrender. The truth was irrelevant. What mattered was what came after. Earth did not take control. It did not rewrite constitutions. It did not establish dominance. Instead, it helped build something terrifying and beautiful, a network of civilizations bound not by power, but by truth. A system of mutual autonomy enforced not through threats, but through shared history. Every species was given a vote. Every decision recorded. Every light traced to origin. Callahan declined command of the new alliance. She returned to Earth, her name etched into galactic records as both shadow and light. She declined medals. She declined interviews. She took a small house on a rainy cliffside and let her legacy drift on the wind. Reuben visited often. They talked of oceans, of silence, of the sound a galaxy makes when it exhales. On one visit, he brought news. The last Empire fleet had surrendered. No shots fired. The commander had brought forward her officers and said only, "We're tired of fearing bedtime stories." Callahan said nothing, just poured tea. One day, decades later, a child knocked on her door. Half human, half Kithari. Eyes bright, voice too big for their body. "Are you the lady who scared the galaxy?" Callahan looked at them. "No," she said. "I'm a lady who told it the truth." The child sat beside her. Were they really that afraid? "Yes," she said. "Why?" Callahan watched the sea below. "Because we smiled." The child frowned. "Smiles aren't scary." "They are," she said gently, "when you don't know what's behind them." They sat in silence a while. The child pointed to the stars. "Will they ever come back? The ones who wanted to rule everything." Callahan didn't answer immediately. "Then maybe someone new will try. That's what history does." The child shivered. "What will we do then?" Callahan leaned back. "Remind them. Not with war, but with memory." The sun dipped low. The waves turned gold. And in that light, the galaxy's most dangerous general became, at last, just a woman watching time pass. And in the sky above, the stars burned quietly, watched now not with fear, but with understanding.